Welcome to the BMC Quick Course Series. My name is Tim Constein and I'm the Lead Technical Support for BMC MainView for IMS. In this demo I will show you how to view data that can be used to diagnose performance problems. This is done by creating a summary trace data set from an online log data set or OLDS. For example, if you had an IMS transaction suspected of having high response time between 1 o'clock and 1:30 p.m. yesterday, you could use the summary trace data to confirm there was a response time problem within IMS and help identify what the problem was that would have caused the high response time. However, if you didn't have a summary trace active at the time, or if the data is no longer available for the time when the problem occurred, you can create a trace log data set from an OLDS. The IMFLOGTR trace feature creates a summary trace log data set from an OLDS. From this trace log data set, you can see a summary of transaction execution data, just as if you would have had a summary trace active at the time. To use the log trace feature, you must have BMC MainView for IMS offline installed and running. You can find the JCL for the log trace in the sample library member IMFLOGTR. That is IMFLOGTR. You can specify trace identification, filtering, and exception filtering parameters in the load sysn dd statement. Update the sample JCL by altering the job card and proc header to include the prefix of your BBLink library. And specify the OLDS name and the new trace log dataset name with the IMFLOGTR program. Specify the OLDS that was active when the problem occurred. You can specify multiple OLDS as input. I recommend using filters if you have to run through multiple logs due to the volume of data that could be presented. I also recommend that the size of the trace log dataset be no more than 100 cylinders. Include the keywords you want to use in the load sysn dd statement and submit the job. In this example, you'll see the tran equal IVT-NO. The job output shows the return code of the process and some statistical information, including the start and end time of the log. Now we are going to look at viewing the data, which is viewed just like a summary trace that was run from within MainView for IMS Online. Go to the MainView for IMS main menu and enter HT to display a list of history traces. Be sure there is an active trace directory. If no trace directories are active, you will need to allocate one. Refer to the MainView for IMS documentation for more information. From the History Traces panel, type New on the command line and press Enter. On the Create Trace Directories entry panel, type the name of the new trace log dataset and press Enter. A message validates that the trace log dataset was added. Press F3 to return to the History Traces panel and the added trace will display in the listing. If you don't specify the name of the trace in the IMFLOGTR job, then the name of the trace will be batch LOD. The first trace in the list is the one we just created. Now we are ready to view the trace data and locate the transaction in question. Place the cursor on start time to present a list of times included in the trace. Once the correct time frame has been determined, hyperlink on the number of transactions field to present a list of transactions. Hyperlink on the CNT field of the transaction that has been reported as having slow response time. In this example, THDAMINQ is the name of the transaction in question. I can now sort the list of transactions so that those with the highest response time are placed at the top. You do this by typing in SORT space D, placing the cursor in the column, in this case response time, and hitting Enter. If the transaction at the top of the list appears to be the transaction in question, type ST in the command line to view the summary trace data. The summary trace data can be used to verify that the transaction was entered by the user or LTerm reporting the problem. Review the rest of the data for indicators that show what may have caused the transaction to have a higher response time. For example, a higher number of database IOs as compared to DLI calls would indicate that there may be database issues and you may need to reorg a database. For more information about MainView for IMS, please visit www.bmc.com/support/product-documentation. Thank you for your attendance.